Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting, and finally another episode of the whatever or of the indie show. I even forgot the name of the show. It's been so long since I've done one of these. It's been a little tough getting folks lined out this month. People are busy, things are happening, but we did get a show lined out with my man Unruly. What is going on, my friend? And now the dog's gonna start whining. So go ahead.
Whenever I'm riding in the truck and Loki's with me, he pants like that all the time. And everyone, I'm riding in the truck and Loki's with me, he pants like that.
Rookie.
And everybody, people remark on it. If it's somebody that knows me, they know it's Loki. If not, they'll go, "What the hell is that noise?"
Yeah. So I may have to. We'll see if he calms down here for a second. But tonight we are talking Rachel Rising, Volume 4. And yeah, so we're back. We've been a little bit of a delay since we've had one of these. It's been a while. So your thoughts on Volume 4?
I am betting that you really like this volume because it does tie some stuff together. This, I don't have a critical filter. When I probably said this already when I was in college, I could dissect, a work of fiction because what you had to throw out on paper for those classes.
Yeah.
I could, but when it's something like this that I genuinely love, like all the time, I'll see articles or see a YouTube video of an old movie or show or book I love, and people are coming at it from different directions, pointing out its flaws, and they genuinely never occur to me. And I'll be going, you know what? That guy has a point. But so, I love this. So I loved them all, and I love this one.
So, all right. Yes and no on you being right. There's two things. There's one thing that goes kind of throughout it that's early, but the last 6 pages, minus the last page, I was kind of like, what the hell? And we'll get to that, but mainly because I just felt like they did a whole bunch of stuff super rushed right at the end, the little showdown, and they didn't really, it didn't all make sense to me. And I even went back and reread the last chapter again last night. Well, I read the whole thing last night, and then I went back and reread that chapter. Am I missing something? So we'll get there. I feel like there's some things that they didn't, that last confrontation, I don't feel like he did a good enough job laying that out. I felt that whole sequence felt super rushed, compared to the pacing of the story. So oh, we're going to wrap up this whole story arc, this whole part of the arc right now. And it's wait, what? And it was kind of so go ahead.
Zoe is a wild card.
Well, yeah. It actually isn't the Zoe Lilith part that I'm going to complain about. So, but we will get there for sure. I didn't forget to shout out some folks. We had GT Key in the house. What's going on? GT Key, Blue Collar Dan in here. Old Wolf. What is going on, Old Wolf? You may be they were tailgating. I don't know if they're back or not, but Old Wolf is here right now. So, all right. So we picked this up where we left it off in terms of Aunt Johnny's friend had killed them all, again. And we see Rachel remembering, what was happening before the witch trials. And, well, not even witch trials, but the witch massacre that they did. And we see her meeting Lilith, and we see her family that she comes from back in the old days. What did you think of this little opening sequence of Lilith and Burn Aaron? I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that, but yeah.
It's such a classic trope, the small-minded homesteaders, wrapped up in their pseudo zealotry.
Yeah.
But the dialogue is great.
Yeah.
And I love how on almost not every panel, but most panels, how he fleshes out the background.
Yeah.
And it's just In this flashback, Lilith is sympathetic,
Right.
and not the obvious bad guy by any means.
Right. I don't want to go. Yeah, Solo. We'll go Solo. Like, yeah, you can just see like if she's coming in and the house and that panel and just even the boards, like the effort he puts into the boards, and like behind Mary Scott, her mom, but yeah, we see the not exactly, but and Lilith can more than handle herself at this point. And then we kind of get a 2-page hiatus in the backstory. We get a segment. But anyway, I thought the whole thing with the parents was very, very stereotypical, like in terms of like, boy, shocker, her parents were, but like you said, the dialogue more than carries that scene for me. Like it makes it kind of, it makes it stand out when it could have been very stereotypical, if that makes any sense. Like, and so we then get, we get a couple pages of her kind of going in and out of consciousness, and Earl trying to like wake her up, and we go right back to her backstory, and we get basically right before she's caught, and we get to see her love interest when she was alive and the kid, and looks remarkably like someone, despite being a boy. So what did you think of gosh dang, now I'm already blanking on his name.
James,
yes. What did you think of James's introduction here?
That whole the panel where he just gets shot in the back, it kills me every time, man. Every time I see it.
Yeah.
It's just like there are so many people walking the earth with no regard or conception of just how precious life is. And that's just unfathomable to me, Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Oh, because I hit the mute button for a second. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm here. So yes, I can hear you. That's my bad. Yeah, it is very hang on one second. So keep talking about that just the sequence as a whole. I'm gonna take care of the dog for a second. Hang on.
So, but and I've rambled on about this before, how much I love his art. And in some he can just lightly sketch in a face with a handful of lines in one panel, and then in the next panel it's incredibly detailed, but they both work great. And his faces are so individualized, and he draws expressions really well. There's really only a handful of artists. Well, I suppose back growing up reading nothing but Cape Comics,
yeah,
there weren't a whole lot of artists that drew good faces or distinct faces.
Yeah, they don't concentrate on
that. And I love that. I love it.
Yeah, he does a very good job of you always knowing who you're looking at in terms of all the characters. They all I had to, like, the dog panting and whimpering was messing with my concentration, so he had to get booted. so that's where I went for a second, Old Wolf. But yeah, but I found this interesting because clearly, so we then flash back, and the first thing that like I found weird about this volume, and not that it didn't work, but we get Rachel wakes up and she goes over the Jet, but she doesn't wake Jet up, she wakes James up. And like, where has he been the whole time? I don't know. It was like why during this cycle, if he's the one that's giving her this afterlife, why hasn't his personality been there the whole time? I guess this was my one little complaint. Is like, this felt like it came a little bit out of left field. That like,
but who knows how magic works? Maybe it took her remembering that moment because she's lived before, as we find out later in this volume. She's gone through the cycle more than once.
Right.
but she doesn't. Apparently, she doesn't always remember it. I don't know when it comes to magic. I don't have many questions because obviously there's no logic to magic.
Yeah, and I guess it takes her saying his name to wake him up. I guess is part of it. Like, I mean,
he might have been there all along, and maybe that's why her and Jet are simpatico.
Yeah, for sure that he's there, but like she had to wake him up. But it was interesting to me that once she woke him up, then Jet couldn't wake up. But that was interesting. So that's the first issue. Is we finally get a Rachel flashback. I thought it was really well done. Like you said, the dialogue was just fantastic in some of that. And then we jump the next issue. We start with your least favorite character that you're upset every time she's on the page. I don't know how you like make it through these sections, but we see Zoe. And so what do you think of Zoe and Jack and Malice here as we get the beginning of this story?
All right, so it's broken up through the issue. We go back and forth between that dialogue with Malice and with Jet and what's going on at the house.
Yeah.
But this whole sequence with Malice is just amazing. The dialogue, you can see he's an evil spirit. Apparently one of Satan's high up in Satan's chain of command.
Right.
And he's genuinely, I think he really likes Zoe because she amuses him occasionally.
Yeah.
And Zoe amuses everybody occasionally. She's a twisted little. Well, she had this demon stuck inside her for 50 years. Of course she's twisted. I loved it. I love how her whole attitude, the knife is mine now. I don't give a shit. It used to be. That's history.
Yeah.
It's mine. I'm going to make it to suit my needs.
There you go. Yeah. That guy's dead. He has no say on what happens to. I just found it interesting because his indignation when she's like, "Sorry, the blade's old," when she's like working on it, it's older than mankind. He's like, "You gave it to me. It's mine now. I'll do whatever I want." And at first he's like indignant, and then he's like, "Oh, you'd see the amusement that he's for sure that like, okay, So next we get before we come back to them, we get Rachel trying to wake up Aunt Johnny and Carol, and she puts Aunt Johnny in the dog. I mean, like.
But let's back up a little bit. James, when he realizes he's in a woman's body and he freaks out.
Oh, yeah.
And then she turns on the TV from him. Imagine that culture shock. You're all of a sudden you've switched genders and you bump forward 300 years into the freaking future, 200 whatever.
Well, I love how she turns the TV on and he's just like the joke of a typical guy. It's like, oh, there's something on TV, like that they stop paying attention to the conversation. He's just watching the TV, which in his case, because he's like never seen anything, doesn't understand what he's looking at, right? But I just thought that was kind of a funny, like, to me, that was the first thing that popped into mind. Oh, guy easily distracted by the TV, or what was, But we see Rachel try to save Johnny, but she ends up, when she realizes her spirit's leaving, puts her in the dog, and the dog runs away, of course. But then we see death again, as we see Carol is not coming back, and Rachel comes face to face with death. And interestingly, unlike with like Lilith, death offers her the hand. Like, she's like, hey, you can come. If you can go whenever you want. It's basically like the impression we're getting. And Rachel, of course, shuts the door. She's like, I ain't ready for that. She's like, no. Or burn Aaron. I don't know which we're supposed to call her at this point, but
And there's another huge culture shock. All of a sudden, Aunt Johnny, the woman of science, who even with all this weird shit going on, is determined to find the rational explanation.
Right.
She comes to her senses in her dog's body.
Oh yeah, she just freaks out like completely.
There's all kind of freaked out people in that living room.
Yeah. So we get that, and Rachel's plotting to like bring Johnny back, and she's trying to figure out how to get to her box, her magic box, which we saw her bury, and we know is under the street, or we believe is under the street. And then we flash back to Malice and Zoe walking, and basically Zoe's like, "Yeah, dude, you haven't fooled me. I know who you are. Like that, you're not this benevolent priest. Don't give me that crap." So we have the same argument they had before about, I'm not having your child. Like, just like, I'm not birthing the Antichrist. And so what do you think? And of course, she puts, and I assume this is the one thing that this is obviously Lilith, right? Again, like that was the one thing I was a little questioning here. Is this person she sees when she's talking to him?
It's gotta be.
It's got to be Lilith, but then, you know what? I missed it, because then there's somebody that comes up and it's like, oh my God, but that person gets out of a car. Okay, I missed that they got out of a car. I thought, well, wait, is that Lilith? Why would she be saying, oh my God? Yes, Old Wolf, she has a magic box. Good grief.
Don't they all?
Yeah. So we'll see. We don't know where. But she kills Malice's current form again, and we see him kind of rise out. But we don't. So we don't know where Malice is at the moment. We don't get this time. The audience does not get to see what happens to Malice in terms of who he. I assume it's the lady in the car, but who knows who he's going to be in the next time we see him. So we jump forward back to Rachel, and they're bringing. And we just see the snowstorm just continues to just go crazy here, which is, I guess, Lilith's revenge. Is she's just going to bury the town under snow? Is that that seems kind of mild compared to like the rats and the water and all the stuff she was doing before? That she's like, I'm just going to do a blizzard. Like,
yeah, but a blizzard, they're all trapped in their houses.
Yeah,
probably. Who knows how many people have generators? That's a horrible way to die, starved to death, trapped in your house.
I'm not saying it. It's a little more mundane than we've seen Lilith do in terms of more, obviously easily explained as, although I think it's still summer. Am I wrong on this? I feel like it's supposed to still be summer at this time. Like it should not be like this, but I can't remember now, back to the beginning.
I can't either.
But
no, remember it was cold when she was talking to her buddy on the porch, the big.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Okay, it is. So it's not completely out of the time of year. But we see her recruit creepy Dr. Simeon again.
That's exactly how I think of him. Creepy Dr. Simeon.
I mean, the dude.
But now listen, and I'm not making excuses. He's a creep. There's no doubt. But from the hints he's dropping, he's been walking the earth for a pretty damn long time, too. And I think one thing we can surmise between Lilith and creepy Dr. Seaman is I think the only reason Rachel's normal is because she doesn't remember most of her past lives. And that's something that science fiction writers hit on is, what if you did live 1,000 years? It would twist your mind,
Yeah. Okay, so I will say that I hadn't really picked up on that he was older in that way.
Oh yeah. Remember,
that didn't really register for me. I just thought he was creepy.
All right,
he was obsessed with it, but I didn't necessarily think that he had been part of it, I guess.
No, and I think that's one of the reasons he's obsessed with it is because he's lonely.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He wishes some of the people he'd known had stuck around for a minute.
Yeah, for sure. So we see her, which then makes his denying, telling Rachel that this isn't going to work, that she's dead. It's like, you can't bring her back, and her spirit and all that kind of stuff. It makes that conversation have a different tone to me, because it feels like he's just being disingenuous with her. Like, if he knows.
No, but see, I don't think we ever get his backstory explained. He's just been alive a long time, but he doesn't know. He's not in the know about.
Oh, he doesn't know why or what's going on.
Or how all this works. Remember when he was telling the fairy tale to him?
Yeah.
He was a witness to that. Go back and reread that section. That's
not
something he read in the book. He was there.
Okay. Interesting.
And he makes a mention here about later on about the Medicis, and he was there to see that.
Yeah.
We'll come across it.
Yeah. So anyway, Rachel hatches her plan. He's like, okay, I'll try to like bring her aunt back. Meanwhile, we jump to Zoe, who's hiding out in a gas station bathroom, like, and like this scene with the dog coming through the wall is freaking bizarre. But she doesn't actually kill something. Like, this is like one of the few things she's interacted with that she just didn't kill. She actually like uses the plunger to like, or the scrub brush thing to like save herself, and then but she ends up helping the dog out, taking mercy on the dog, and actually making a friend, which is interesting for her because normally we've just seen everything in her path has just ended up dead.
And again, that whole sequence in the garage. And when the owner comes in and all that, it's so wonderfully illustrated, man.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the owner, another lowlife, or apparently in what this brief interaction we see with him, another lowlife that I really don't mind Zoe offing.
Well, yeah. It does seem to Matt that she finds the good ones. For sure. I mean, yeah, he comes in, he's like, because he's saying, you tripped the silent alarm. I know you're here. It doesn't call the cops. It calls me, and I'm just going to shoot your ass. He's ready to blast first and ask questions later for sure. But of course, shockingly, Zoe gets the better of another creepy old dude.
And there's two things on the opposite pages. When she first hits him, she's waving with a smile on her face, hi. And then she's rolling out of the garage. She hits the windshield wipers to get the blood off.
Yeah. Zoe is something, to put it mildly.
Dude, all right, the miniseries, he's on something else now, Parker Girls.
Yeah.
But he did an 8-issue miniseries with her after these events, and there's one he did with all his characters. She was in that, but very minor.
Yeah.
But the Zoe miniseries is so damn good. I really hope he lives at least as long as I live, and he keeps putting out another one with her in it every so often. I'd like to see her grow up.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
See what happens with her. So then we jump back to Jet/James, still trying to adapt to being a girl. And we see them kind of making their plot, how they're going to try to fix Aunt Johnny. And it requires Rachel finding her magic box for Tony. But she discovers it's not under the street. She's not going to have to jackhammer it out. It's actually was found and is in the Historical Society. And we see them try to go out in this little SUV and brave this storm that is just getting kind of ridiculous at this point. And just arguing. Yeah, her and James are arguing constantly. But the result of this is James basically calls her on the fact that her memory was wrong. That she remembered basically being the age she is now or close to it. And she wasn't. She was actually just a little kid. Like, literally like a little kid. And her parents actually were abusing her. And, like, so we find out a whole bunch. Like, we see her with Lilith right here. Like, that her memories was, he was just older boy that was a friend, that was the brother of her friend, and yeah, that she thought she was going to marry, but there was none of that from his side. That like he's been stuck because of her crush when she was a little girl, and not because of anything else. So what?
And you can tell it throws her for a real loop.
Yeah. So what did you think of that reveal? That that her memories were faulty.
That was a great twist that I did not see coming at all. But let me ask you something more prosaic, because I've never really driven in snow. Would it even be? It looks like that snow's 2-3 foot deep, and they get a good distance in that little thing. Is that possible?
To a point, it depends on like. Obviously, like if nobody's been on to pack it down, then that like it's harder because what it'll do at a certain height. Like even if you got 4-wheel drive, it wedges on the frame and on the it packs and wedges on the frame that you can't if you don't have enough clearance to actually get over it. It doesn't matter if you have 4-wheel drive, because the snow you've packed snow you're pushing on it, and if it's packing against the frame, eventually what they do is stick. So this is exaggerated that they're going as far as they do, but. I mean, you can go in a pretty decent snowstorm, especially if it's packed down enough that you can get on top of it a little bit, so that you're not going sinking all the way to the bottom. But yeah, they're definitely. It's a little bit unrealistic given the way he's drawing it. It's a little unrealistic, yes. Like it gets up over the tires, you're toast. You're not going. You're toast. So at least would be my experience. But I ain't a northerner like this guy, so he could probably tell us differently. But but like where we're at, maybe those people with snow tires and stuff, I know they drive on, but I feel like they got to be packing that stuff down or clearing it enough that they can get on top of it and actually drive on it. But when it's soft and fresh coming down like that, it's gonna eventually you're gonna get stuck when it gets that deep. But yeah, because it's showing it almost up to the windows, and there's no way unless a plow has been through there and that's just beside the road. There's no way that you're getting that far. Because they're walking in and it's waist deep or almost, and that's no fun either. So,
I did some cold weather training up in the mountains in Northern California. I know a little bit about existing in it, but I've never driven on it.
Yeah. So she definitely gets thrown for a loop when James tells her kind of the truth. But we see them make it to the historical society, and of course Rachel just breaks right in and finds her old magic box. We'll just keep doing that for Old Wolf. And she's like, it's like Dorian Gray. And I love how she keeps referencing all these things. And James is like, I don't get that. I don't know. I still don't know what you're talking about.
Clint Eastwood later.
Yeah. Oscar Wilde. No, who? And it just keeps going. And she manages to get it open and find what she needs. So here's the thing. She's like, there isn't a potion strong enough to stop Lilith, but this might work. And she pulls out this ring. And I'm going to come back to this because it's so they set this all up. She needs this magic box. She needs this ring. And they come outside, and what they do find, which I find interesting, is because it was waist deep. And now they come outside, and it's ankle deep. As they walk up the joy. Because I can tell you right now, that van ain't going anywhere in this kind of weather compared to that SUV they were even driving a while ago. An old Volkswagen van like that? No, thank you. In snow, there's no way. Because I'm pretty sure that's rear-wheel drive, which is not gonna. I don't think that's a front-wheel drive. I don't think those things are front-wheel drive.
But, I don't think so either.
Yeah, and you got a better chance of front-wheel drive, but no. And I love this part where James pulls the arm of the guy she ran over at the shop out from under the wheel. And none of them say anything. None of them.
And Zoe tries to play it off all nonchalant.
Well, yeah, she's trying to play it off. Oh, okay, well, thanks. But she's trying to play it off. But Rachel isn't, which at this point I can get Rachel not being surprised. But James just like looks at it and drops it in the snow. Like he hasn't been there for like 15 minutes at this point. He's like, there's just some dude's arm.
He's got to be in complete and utter existential shock.
Yeah, for sure. And then, but Rachel quickly realizes who is behind the wheel here. And Zoe's like, I don't know you. Like, yeah, and does something to her. Makes her see all her victims. I don't know exactly what she did there, but because we just see a bunch of skulls, and Zoe is actually rattled for once.
Because for all I talk about her being a sociopath, she's not really. She does have empathy and feelings.
Yes.
And it's got to rattle her to realize what Malice made her do for, half a freaking century.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, yeah, I love how she's like, you touch me again, you'll pull back a stump. And she's like, who are you? She's like, you're full of victims. Did you kill all those people? And so it just like, yeah, it's just the two of them are. And I love how she uses, like, she's finally like, go away, I'll kill you both. It's like, that won't go well for you, and actually, like, intimidated by, she wasn't intimidated by Malice, and yet she's intimidated by Rachel here, which is, I find a little surprising. I feel like she would probably just be like, yeah, whatever. But.
Well, Rachel's given her the
dead eyes, evil eye, yeah, for sure,
and the scar.
Yeah, she's got the scar, got the bloodshot eyes. Yeah, she's definitely, because she's like, oh great, zombies. I'm being carjacked by zombies.
And she's not wrong.
No, she's not at this point. So we see them get in the van and they're headed to Rachel basically I think I missed a page. I did miss a page. Because we
were having the conversation about Lilith?
Yeah, I missed the conversation about Lilith.
That's good stuff.
I apparently skipped over 2 pages. Because I apparently went from there to Earl trying to find Aunt Johnny, because I did not get the conversation about Lilith. Because I saw this panel of her climbing out of the hole, and I'm like, wait, I didn't remember that. So yeah. Yeah, so they're talking about her motivation to freeze everybody to death, and she's like,
oh, see, and that's where maybe she got Lilith got to feast off the whole town's misery for 2 years.
Yeah.
As a result of that snow.
Yeah, they dropped Lilith into the trash hole outside and left her there. It took her 3 days to climb out. She poisoned the swamp, land those idiots that chose the called up winter from hell. For almost within 2 years, almost everyone died of Fort. Yeah, he ate everything but the skull. It was too thick. No, I did not. Yeah, how did you know?
Yeah, if revenge is a dish best served cold, then Lilith knows what she's doing.
Yeah, for sure. And so they do talk about the fact that it's like Zoe can see Lilith and others can't. Be honest, is Zoe your real name? It's Twiggy. Yeah, I love
Twiggy Pop.
Yeah, see, because that's mentioned later, and I couldn't get I didn't get the reference. So yeah, I totally missed those 2 pages. But we see Rachel realizes the power's out, so she rushes back home to check on Aunt Johnny. And
thank God the power went out.
Why?
Creepy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because he was clearly like doing he showed something in her brain that like I don't think he was supposed to be doing. At least Like he showed something into her head. He made an incision into her head, and then yeah, he's being like super creepy. It's just like for sure. It's just like he is. So yeah,
Listen, and that's where he's telling the story. I once saw pigs fly. They had to do with catapults in the
right.
Medici encampment.
Yeah, I guess it just didn't register. It didn't register that that's what he was. Yeah, just how old he really was. But we see Earl, get the dog, and we see Rachel come back, and he's clearly been doing things he's not supposed to. But Rachel leaves him what he needs for the ritual because she's going to face Lilith, and they drive up to the place where they killed all the witches, or which almost none of them are witches, but a couple. And they get there, and you get this really creepy panel with all of them like hanging apparently in the sky and stuff. And I love Zoe just like picks up a rock and chucks it through one of the images, or a snowball, and just chucks it through. See, they're not real.
Now we know.
Now we know. Yeah. She's like, what? Now we know. So, and this is where this sort of goes off the, well, not quite yet, but we're getting to the point where it sort of goes off the rails for me in this volume. So the wolves, which I forget which one controlled the wolves, and they don't re-say her name here, and it's been too long, but the wolves attack them, and Rachel talks one of them down, but Zoe, of course, kills the other one because that's what Zoe does. She kills everything. And we see them, and which triggers after they get attacked by the wolves, it triggers like to make the ghostly apparitions start screaming. And we see the others show up. We see Mary Scott, and we see the other lady who I can't remember her name.
Hannah.
Mary Scott's like kill them or whatever, but Hannah comes up and like, yeah. So there's a little bit of a conversation here.
You might want to get tested for STDs.
Yeah. So there, item on Craigslist. Yeah. Because she recognizes her sister, like, because she possessed her sister's body. Yes, I forgot about that. But anyway, so we get to the confrontation, and Hannah comes up and tries to do the snake thing into Jet/James. And we get, like, as that's happening, we get Lilith showing up and telling Mary Scott that that's her brother. And, like, I just feel like this whole sequence happens too quick. We get Lilith telling her, so Mary Scott kind of changes teams to try to help her brother, and they're trying to pull the snake back out. And we get Zoe, or I forget who kills the snake. The wolf kills the snake. Okay, yeah. I was trying to remember which one killed the snake. So the wolf kills the snake. So Hannah's toast. And we get this sequence here. That's what really messed with me was, because Zoe had already killed Hannah's body. And, like, when they tell James to just go, like, you don't belong here. No, we don't. She's like, just go. Just let go, James. Go be with your family. And Rachel tells him. So James' spirit leaves Jet's body. And we just see Mary Scott sobbing over him before we get the confrontation between Lilith and Zoe. And I'm gonna skip that for a second, because then we come back, and when Jet gets up, it's just a skeleton there. It's like the Mary Scott thing was like, wait, why did why didn't Mary Scott's body just die? Like, why didn't we see her spirit leave like we saw his? Why did it become a skeleton? It was like so weird and I just felt like the wrap up of Mary Scott and not Lilith, but Hannah was just like, we've had like 4 volumes. The pacing on this has been very much one pace, and this whole sequence is like boom, 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 boom. Goodbye, Hannah. Goodbye, Mary Scott. Goodbye, James. It's like, potentially, although I don't think it's really goodbye. Potentially goodbye, Lilith, and it's like in about 4 pages, and I just felt like this part. Not that it's not like, other than the Mary Scott thing not being explained, like that was the part that confused the heck out of me at first, because I was like, where did she go? And then I finally realized she was the skeleton. But
I thought that was a nice touch, but that was her sister, right? Wasn't that Zoe's sister?
No. So Mary Scott was in Zoe's sister's body. Yes.
So she hadn't been dead long enough to completely skeletonize.
No.
I mean, dead in story terms.
Well, like, wait. I don't remember which one was Zoe's. Mary Scott was, one of them was Zoe's sister, and the other one was the lady from the bar.
Yeah, that was pushed off the roof.
Yeah. So neither one of them had been long enough to become skeletons. And now I'm confused about which one's which, honestly. Wait, go back to where she's yelling at her. She's yelling at check for STDs. Which one is she yelling at? Oh, Mary Scott. Yeah, Mary Scott's her sister's body, for sure.
And that's a great, you might want to get tested for STDs. And Zoe goes, what a tool. And Mary Scott, it's like talking to a stump.
Yeah. For sure. And, and then we get the whole.
But I think Zoe is so effective a killer because no one expects it.
Yeah.
No one expects a little girl to just come up, especially with a weapon that can basically defenestrate you,
Yeah. So we see, like, the other thing I skipped over here is the other sequences. We see Zoe go marching up to Lilith, and she's like, Zoe, you shouldn't be here. She's like, you lied to me, Lilith. You play, zip it, nobody, like, and Zoe just like, she's like, what, you're going to kill me with a knife? Whatever. She's like, me, yeah, you're so self-absorbed. And Zoe just like slashes her with Jack, and she's like, it's not a knife, it's a sword, or this is what's left of it. And clearly, like, something, because of who Lilith is, we see like the other victims that were buried on the hill come up to claim Lilith here. And yeah, we see her telling her, like, don't use that knife. Like, I just think it's funny. It's like, really? You're religious now? Take a side, Lilith. But yeah, we see, like, this whole sequence apparently wraps up this whole storyline with Lilith and Mary Scott and Hannah, although I don't believe it's wrapped up the storyline with Lilith. Not completely, but we'll see, because there's 9 volumes. But and like 4 pages, it just feels so like, and I actually like the Zoe, like Lilith not being prepared for Zoe. I actually like that. But the other 2 I just felt like was super quick. I will say, the one thing I will say for the wrap up of this volume is, instead of our every other volume where we had the death of Jet, we get like her looking around at dead bodies and a wolf and then standing on the thing. It's like, what is happening when she finally wakes up after James leaves?
Dead wolf, dead snake, skeleton, woman cut in half, wolf holding snake head.
And looking at her expectantly, like, hey, I brought you a snake head, pet me, kind of thing. Like,
and the expression on Rachel's face in the last panel.
Oh yeah, that grin. Yeah, we get the focus. Yeah. So at this point, we're done, except for Malice, right?
I don't know.
I think probably not. I feel like there's no way that's the end of Lilith. So overall, your thoughts on this particular volume and this part? I know you gave some of that at the beginning, but just like, what do you think about this and where it fits in the story and everything else? What did you think about this volume?
It's a good wrap up to basically a little over the first half of the story.
Right.
But I see your point where it feels rushed, but isn't life like that, man?
It is. It just felt very jarring to me. And I think the biggest point of it was it felt very jarring to me because it was such a change in pace from what it had been. But actually, in hindsight, like as we talk through it, the only thing that really bothers me about it is the Mary Scott thing. Because we see her like tell him to go, and then she's sobbing, and then we flash back, she's a skeleton. Like, there's no, like, they don't actually deal with her. Like, he just skips, unless I missed the page again. Maybe I missed
No.
And
she decided to join him, you know? She
but
took
we
her own
don't,
advice.
but why does she become I don't know.
It's magic. Quit trying to make sense of magic.
But I felt like the character deserved a panel of her making that choice as well. Like when they tell it, even if just in the panel where like instead of saying, what does it say? It says, Mary, he says, Mary, we don't belong here. And she says, no, we don't. And I guess Rachel's the one, just let go then, James. Go be with your family. Even if she just follows up and just says, yes, let's go. And like, or something. If there's, I guess the no, we don't is supposed to be that statement. But I don't know. For me, it was just jarring because I was looking for her. It took me I'm looking in the panels like, where did Mary Scott go? Where did Mary Scott go? And then I was like, where'd the skeleton come from? Wait, is that Mary Scott? It was this whole, I think that more than anything, it just threw me that it was just a weird way that he handled it compared to the way he'd handled most everything else. If that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't, but
no, it does. It makes perfect sense. But I want to say it was in Preacher. No, it's some book I've read at some point was describing war as days, weeks, and months of boredom interspersed with moments of pants-shitting terror.
Yeah.
And that's not just war, that's an apt metaphor for life.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Like I said, I think as we've talked about it, those pages don't bother me as much, but that one thing definitely does still bother me. And I still just, the whole thing with James still feels a little weird to me. It feels like it came a little bit out of left field. Like he's like, I'm going to add this in, and he's going to be a Jet's body, and he's going to look like Jet. Like, that it wasn't necessarily planned from the beginning, like the James thing does to me. Like, those two things, because it was just like suddenly for a volume, Jet's not James. But I guess I complained for 3 volumes that all he did was, at the end of every volume, he killed Jet. So he didn't kill Jet this time. Jet were a step in the right direction. So.
Well, I've never written a long work of fiction, but I've read half a dozen authors who, when talking about their process, say, the characters, after you reach a certain point, the characters do what they want to do.
Yeah.
So that might just be a case of that here.
And I'd read a thing talking about that, like, recently. Like, I'm a huge fan of, like, One Piece, which is a Japanese manga that's like 1,080 issues. Like, it's like longer running it's been coming out weekly for 20 years. You'd have to read more issues than you'd have to read of Action Comics to get caught up. Like, so, and it's one author, who's done the whole thing. And he talks about, like, I wouldn't still be doing this if Luffy, like the main character, didn't intrigue me and still surprise me and like with what he does. And like, he's like, if it wasn't, like, I don't know what he's going to do. Like, so, and it's, so yeah, I get where you're coming from on that. Sometimes the story takes you to places that you don't expect to go as the writer, as well And I think that's about having good characters, because your characters sometimes are going to go a direction you don't expect them to go, because of as the story comes out, it's like, no, this is what they would do. So for sure. And I'm looking forward to more. But I am curious to see, like, because he definitely sets the tone of like no more Lilith, but I don't believe that. I do feel like that was, if that's the end of Lilith, I will be disappointed, because I do feel like that was too quick for what they'd set up through the first 4 volumes. I mean, I get that it's Zoe, but go ahead.
We still got Malice lurking around too.
We do have Malice, but so this is from me. I don't know that Malice, like, outside of his conversations with Zoe, Malice doesn't interest me that much as a villain. Like, as much as I found Lilith to be a more interesting villain, but then they took her off the board so easily that that was a little bit of a surprise to me.
Well, in every single comic Moore has written, women have been the protagonists,
right?
And they're very, female centric. And I don't know what a female thinks about this series, but he writes very believable, very well characterized, powerful women characters, or right. Not necessarily powerful, but just, they're not wimps and they're not stereotypical.
They have their own agency. They're not
exactly.
They're not characters that are dependent on other people or on some boyfriend or to protect them or whatever, or husband or whatever. Like they have their own wants, desires, and plans, and they're doing their own thing for sure. All right.
Excuse me.
Well, we're coming up on our hour. Any final thoughts on this one before we get out of here?
I'm ready for the next chapter.
Yeah. No, it took us longer to get back to this than I had originally intended. I'm glad we finally did. I am looking forward to more. I haven't, like, this one has been weird. I think of like most of the indies that I've done this show for. I do feel like, and I think it's really because of the dialogue. Like, there's parts of this I just adore, and there's parts of it that's like, and I feel like some of his strength is clearly dialogue and personal interactions and conversations, and obviously he's a really great, fantastic artist. Don't get me wrong, but like in terms of storytelling, his dialogue is great. The story itself, I feel like, has been uneven at times in terms of the plot line and the through line of what we're following, particularly like where I'm talking about, like the end of this and some things. There's been some unevenness that hasn't been that doesn't quite live up to its dialogue. And I don't know if that's like the dialogue is so high that when the faults in the story come up that I notice them more. I don't know what's going on there, but it is a little like, I find it myself with conflicting emotions about what I actually think about the series, but I do enjoy it. It's just like, does that make sense? What I just tried to say? Maybe not.
1,000%.
Like maybe because the dialogue is so good, I expect the plot to be just as good, and it's not quite. So, but I am definitely looking forward to more. We will see. I don't know. We haven't talked about when we're going to do Volume 5, but hopefully we'll get to it sooner rather than later. Hopefully not nearly as long as we took between the last ones. So with that, we're going to get out of here. Thanks, Kenneth, for hanging out with us. And we will see everybody later.
I'll hang out for. Are we out?
No, I stopped it. You were going to say something before I hit the outro.
No, when the outro rolls, I want to talk to you for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Later, everybody.